Joe, the most pettiest move happened this week.
What's that?
Former Mississippi State head coach Zach Arnett is heading to, not Starkville, because obviously he got fired there, but heading back to Mississippi. He's going to be a defensive analyst for old Lane Kiffin. What you think?
Yeah, this is completely unnecessary, which is why it's the total most Lane Kiffin move that he could possibly make. Because, like, what do you... Zach Arnett was an okay defensive coordinator. He should have never been promoted when he was. He was promoted because of circumstance. They wanted to keep the roster together because of what happened with Mike Leach, which is understandable. I think you can never go wrong, though, adding former head coaches and coordinators as analysts to your roster. We've seen that with Georgia, and we've seen the tremendous success. We've seen that with Alabama, and we've seen the tremendous success. I just also kind of find it funny that Arnett, nobody wanted to hire him, and that this was the next best option for him was to join the staff as an analyst. I mean, maybe you're trying to say earlier.
I thought he was going to be on the staff at San Diego State.
Was that what was speculated?
Yeah, he was going to go be on the staff at defense. I'm pretty sure at San Diego State. It's not that nobody didn't want him.
That was where nobody in the Power Five wanted him. That was where he previously came from. When he was
somewhere out west, I thought.
He came from San Diego State when he was hired by Mississippi State by Leach. But what I was going to say, though, you mentioned earlier, maybe this is some sort of long ploy by Lane if he left. I actually argue the opposite. I argue that this is speculation that he thinks that Pete Golding's going to get hired away after the season. And think about everything that's coming up this year. It's going to be a really talented defense. They're probably going to finish, if things go according to plan, in the top 15 nationally, if things go as good as they could. And that means if they win they're actually there's no divisions now. If they go to the SEC championship game and they go to the college football playoff, maybe they don't win either thing. That's enough for a guy like Pete Golding to get hired away for a job somewhere. And this could just be a look ahead for Lane Kiffin to say, as long as I got guys on my coaching staff and somebody I trust that's familiar with everything, I can just promote the guy from within. I mean, heck, that was what happened with Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo was an analyst that was brought down from the analyst from the booth to be the offensive coordinator. I think that's more of a realistic outlook on why he's doing this.
So then the move's not for nothing. Because
I'm joking when I'm saying that.
Okay. Well, I didn't think about that. Okay, about Pete getting hired as a head coach somewhere, mainly because of some, look, Pete had an unfortunate off the field issue. Okay, that I think maybe could limit some things as a head coach, maybe in the SEC for right now. I think he needs more time, to be honest with you. But it could happen. It 100% could happen. I mean, look, it was reported. I mean, Pete got a DWI, so I don't know if that, like you want to make that the face of your program. Yeah. Maybe you could. Okay. Like Ole Miss wouldn't mind that happening because it'll be like, well, who hadn't gotten a DWI? It would just, It would feel that way. I do think that two things can be true at the same time, and I do think that there is a longer play, but let me tell you this one right now. Joe, I do think it's something that Zach Arnett, is plucked in this situation because of all the defensive guys and all the defensive coordinators that he could have added as an analyst. He respected Zach Arnett enough to bring him there, right? Like somebody who Lane is an offensive guy. You go up against him. Lane's probably like, man, this defense is tough. I think he's a good coach. Can help Pete out on some things that he's seen, throughout a game. I think it's as good as an analyst hire that's ever been made. I'm serious about this because that's just another former head coach, DC, that where Lane can just do what Lane wants to do best. Call plays, run the offense, and quite honestly now, Joe, he doesn't have to do anything because he can go to Zach and say, listen, be a set of eyes for Pete on the field. Pete is cool with that. We need more eyes on the field. Y'all do what y'all need to do. Let's have some good chemistry here. I think it's just such a fantastic hire. But I thought of it as Lane Kiffin's leaving, Pete Golding gets promoted, and Zach Arnett is his DC too. Because I will tell you, when it comes to the defensive side of things and staff hires, Lane is asking Pete what he wants to do. It's not like Zach Arnett does not get hired there if Pete Golden says, I don't want him. I promise you that does not happen.
Yeah. Here's the only thing though. I think we're kind of on the same page on just like how they're viewing this. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I think that this is some great hire. I feel like Zach Arnett has been propped up a lot.
Dude, their defenses get a lot of teams in the SEC that's been pretty much offensive prolific at times. Serious issues.
But here's where I'm a little wary of a guy like this is, one, his defense when he was the DC at Mississippi State, like they were pretty good. They were pretty good. And then when he was the head coach, it completely tanked, which is kind of a problem. But the other thing in the general view on Zach Arnett is that he's kind of an a-hole. He's kind of difficult to work with.
Oh, dude. Is
he
an a-hole?
I just get really
Lane Kiffin an a-hole?
But this is the whole point. I get worried that when you're bringing all these difficult to work with personalities into a room, and one of them is an analyst, they're not even the direct defensive coordinator. I just get worried that sometimes there's just all of these egos trying to measure dicks all the time, and that leads to a lot of problems. The last thing that I need is somebody like him thinking that I'm next up, so I got to weigh in, I got to prove everybody. I got to get my job back. I got to prove everybody how great I am. I'm making an assumption there. I know I am.
Analysts like him, though, only talk to Lane and Pete.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to come out on the sideline and cause a commotion or talk to the players.
I know, but he's not going to be – other than, at the at the coaching table where they're breaking some stuff down, he's probably going to have his own office, doing his own film and giving his own breakdown to help out Pete. He's not going to be maybe he's in meetings, but I think that he's going to be enough to where him and Pete maybe talked about things beforehand. I think
he still has to interact with the coaching staff, though. And the last thing that we need to add in somebody. It's just like the Wink Martindale thing in a way that we talked about, where the last thing you heard about Wink Martindale is that he had a big blow up with Brian Daboll, and that he is historically difficult to work with. When there is this narrative that is produced by the media because they're getting information from college coaches,
Zach didn't really have that asshole mentality with the media, not with his coaches. His players
wait. But there was a reason why he got fired so quickly.
Yeah,
if he wasn't such an asshole, he would have been given much more of a benefit of the doubt because the difficulty of the undertaking of the situation he was taking over.
I think they're going to move on from him no matter what.
99% of the time, if a coach is fired in the first year, it's because the administration thinks he's an asshole and they don't want to deal with him anymore. He was 5-6. That's not horrible. It's not good, but that's not fireable. They had a decently difficult schedule. I don't know, man. I'm just a little worried.
He was given an impossible task.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that. I just think that there has been a constant assumption that he's difficult to work with.
For what it's worth, he is an asshole to media. I've never heard that about him coaching and player wise.
All right, maybe I'm jumping to a conclusion too much.
Yeah, maybe. But he is an asshole though. So it's not like you're wrong. You know what I mean? He is an asshole. So normally, asshole. It's like a cat in a hat book. Cat in a hat book. Asshole over here. Asshole over there. Asshole in the sky. Asshole in your underwear. Yeah. He's going to be an asshole anywhere he goes. I could lean with that. Maybe.
I'm just not optimistic. It's not that I'm not optimistic. This is probably going to be fine. He's worked with some great defensive players at Mississippi State, but it just feels unnecessary in a way. I understand what the vision is, and the vision is this could be a future DC for us.
Do you really think that Lane would bring him in if this is his year to go in and get it, to bring in somebody that would hurt the culture just to be petty? I don't think he's doing it to be petty. I don't think he's doing it as I think he's smart enough to not do something like that. So then why does he make this hire then?
Because I think he's just trying to make the same move that he thinks that the same type of move that everyone else in the conference does that we talked about at the beginning, where Kirby will hire former head coaches and make them analysts. Saban used to do it all the time. It's a very common thing in the industry that if somebody's available and they're looking for a job, just bring them in to have another former head coach.
Yeah, but
in the
if
room.
he was if that big of an asshole, to at least where Lane
Man,
thought.
all right, man, the more that you keep saying it, the more I'm realizing how obnoxious I kind of sound when I'm saying it. I don't think it's a false thing to say though. Like I don't think it's a false concern to have. You got fired after one season.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not indicative of him though. I mean, they were put in such a horrible situation when Mike Leach died.
But it's not like any of those. Most of those kids didn't even really transfer from Mississippi State. Like most of that roster stayed.
Yeah, but Joe, they're 6-6. I mean, Brent Venables didn't get fired at Oklahoma. I mean, so many guys have gone 6-6 in year one.
But that's my.
He had
that's
such
my,
a small contract that they could buy him out because they knew that they were going to do that. They panicked. They hired him to stabilize it, and they're like, "Hey, man, at the end of the year, you're fired."
But that's my point is that there are plenty of I don't know, maybe it was at 5-6. I think he was 4-6. The 5-6 record was because he won the bowl game from the previous year. But because somebody said something in the chat, I would argue though that there's a lot of coaches who have started off horribly, and you just brought up Brent Venables, and we're given the benefit of the doubt to say, all right, you need to recruit and figure this stuff out. We're going to give you some time. And many people argue that Brent Venables is a difficult individual to deal with. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.